Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Melanie Cassar, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1, Kim Owen. Today marks the 81st anniversary of the beginning of the siege of Tobruk. To obstruct Rommel's advance into Egypt, the port town of Tobruk had to be held at all costs. The Australian 9th Division formed the core of Tobruk's defence. Commanded by Major General Leslie Morsehead, the 9th Division, which was supported by the 7th Division's 18th Brigade and an assortment of British and Indian troops, endured much hardship. They became known as the Rats of Tobruk for their tenacity and determination. The men endured panzer attacks, constant shelling, and continuous air raids. Their world became one of mines, barbed wire and concrete perimeter posts, night raids and constant patrolling. In early December, Rommel was forced to quit Tobruk and retreat westwards. Tobruk remained a thorn in Rommel's side and prevented his advance into Egypt that year. The Australians who had formed the core of Tobruk's defence suffered the heaviest losses from April to the end of October. Casualties totalled 3,349, including 749 dead. Today, we remember those who are listed on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. Shortly, we will tell the story of Private Lyle Isadore Cheney, who was among those killed during the siege of Tobruk. We are honoured to welcome Mr. John King, President of the Return and Services League of Australia, ACT branch. Mr. Alex McGowan, President of the Naval Association of Australia, ACT section. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Club Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Lyle Isadore Cheney. Lyle Cheney was born on the 10th of January 1908 in Wagga Wagga, New South Wales. He was one of 3 sons born to Robert and Amy Cheney and received his education at the local public school. After his schooling, he became an apprentice carpenter with local firm Hardy's Limited. He was also a keen sportsman, participating in numerous boxing competitions across New South Wales throughout the 1920s and 1930s. In 1929, he won 5 consecutive victories by knockout in a Sydney boxing match and became a well-known champion. He lived in Queensland and later in Bourke for a short period before settling in Sydney's suburb of Paddington. At the outbreak of war in 1939, he was working as a carpenter. Cheney returned to his hometown of Wagga Wagga in 1940, where he enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 5th of June. He was sent to the army camp at Greta in the Hunter Valley region of New South Wales. He spent several months training there before embarking with his battalion from Melbourne on board the troop ship New Zealand on the 1st of October 1940. Private Cheney reached Egypt on the 2nd of November and travelled to Palestine with his unit. They camped in the village of Julis until January 1941, when they moved to the Libyan port of Tobruk under the command of the 6th Division. There, the 2nd 1st Pioneer Battalion was responsible for repairing roads, restoring the port, and reclaiming engineering material. When the Allies advanced at the beginning of February, Cheney's unit also moved forward to maintain the road between Derna and Tobruk. When the Germans landed at Tripoli in early 1941, they joined the Italian forces and began advancing east. This caused British troops to evacuate the city of Benghazi and fall back to Tobruk, where most of Cheney's unit were stationed. As the enemy forced them back, an Australian lieutenant destroyed the Derna Pass to give the Allies more time to retreat. By the 10th of April, the Allies had been pushed all the way back to Tobruk and were now under siege. Over the next 5 months, Cheney's battalion assisted in the defence of Tobruk, serving as infantrymen and managing defensive posts, which operated across perimeters outside the city. In May, when the enemy captured a salient near Ras al Mador, the 2nd 1st Pioneers were involved in heavy fighting to push the enemy back and regain the ground lost. Cheney's battalion suffered greatly during the battle for the salient, sustaining 44 killed, 68 wounded, and 9 men taken prisoner. 3 days later, on the 6th of May 1941, Cheney went out beyond the perimeter wire with his comrades as part of a covering party. On the return trip, they came under enemy fire and Cheney was killed. A comrade later wrote to his mother, "As one of Lyle's cobbers, as you can guess how difficult it is for me to dwell for any length of time on his passing. You can rest assured that all the boys regarded your son as an A1 friend, and each of us miss his ever-cheerful outlook on things. I was the platoon stretcher bearer and helped to bring Lyle into the headquarters. He apparently died instantly and without pain." Private Lyle Cheney was buried nearby at Tobruk War Cemetery. His family later posted a memorial notice in a local newspaper which read, "Just a little while before us you have crossed the rolling tide. We shall meet you, Lyle dear, on that glorious other side." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Lyle Isadore Cheney, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.